What's up, everybody? It's Dan here. Welcome to another DanQ review. Today is, actually it doesn't even matter what the date is. It's not a channel update or anything like that. Anyway, we have two games on the lineup, and like any day, any time with the DanQ review Supershow, you can click at the bottom of me somewhere to locate whatever review you prefer. If you don't want to see a certain one, you can skip, and you can always shut me up at any time, like I said. I've always said in the past. So anyways, let's start off with our first game, and that is The Amazing Spider-Man. Basically, one of the first movie tie-in games I've actually done, to be honest with you, and you know, a lot of people wanted me to cover this one, and a lot of people thought, you know, Dan, the Spider-Man games are usually really good. This was developed by, oh, I'll get into that later, by the same group of people who have developed the previous Spider-Man games, where most of them were a big success, where others weren't so much, but most of them really were. But you'll have to excuse me for, I don't know what you can tell, my kind of messed up hair, and it is hot as hell today. Like the past couple days in my hometown town of Edmonton, it's been ridiculously heated, and you might see I'm a little flustered right now because it's really hot, and that doesn't matter. So forgive me if I'm not all my my words all together, because I need a fan or something. Anyways, let's do my summary for The Amazing Spider-Man. First off, Amazing Spider-Man is available on Xbox 360, PS3, PC, Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo DS, and Nintendo Wii. It is a open-world action-adventure platformer game. It is developed by Beanox and published by Activision. Alrighty, so what can we really say about Spider-Man? Okay, this game is a single-player only game. I'm sure a lot of you could have guessed that one. How does it feel in terms of the gameplay? Actually, the one part that I think that a lot of people were expecting to be really good is, I mean, the entire free roam aspect, swinging in the city of New York, you know, Manhattan, swinging for, from your Spider-Man's wrist webs. You know, it's so awesome just to do it, like just constantly, swing, and it's not hard either. It's not something that you like learn, it takes time to learn. You can jump right in and have a great time just swinging from building to building, doing crazy maneuvers as Spider-Man. So the number one, the gameplay, I'd like to say, is actually really entertaining in terms of the feel of the free roam aspect. The free roam gameplay is really solid. I think it's really good. What do I feel about the story mode? Well, the story mode of this guy is actually rather good. It takes place after the events of the Amazing Spider-Man film. So what I didn't understand was they released this game a week before the movie came out. Therefore, just like spoiling plots. If you were planning on seeing the movie, you play this game, you pretty much spoiled the ending of the movie for you. And upon playing this game, I now know how the movie ends, and I haven't even seen the damn movie. So upon saying that, you're like, well, okay, is that how it is? I don't really get the marketing thing there. What they should have done was release the movie on Fridays like they normally do, on the Friday previous. So let's see, 25th, 24th, 23rd, on the 22nd, so June 22nd, which was the Friday, then release this game on the Tuesday, on the 26th. That would have made sense. That way a lot of people had enough time to go watch the movie, and then they could pick up the game and pick up right where they left off from the film. But I'm actually going to put that as a negative. Stupid release time, honestly. It spoiled the movie for a lot of people. I mean, for me, I never saw the movie. I don't know if I will, but I think that was one of the major flaws of this thing. You expect a good series, yet you don't, I don't know. It just didn't seem like a good marketing decision to me. But anyways, let's move on. The story mode, other than that, though, it was actually really good. I enjoyed the story mode. I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is a spoiler-free review. It did feel good. There's a lot of like, well, oh god, see, I told you I was flustered. It's hard to think right now. It's like that hot here, you guys. It's crazy. This game is very simple. That's one of the biggest things I could say about it. It's simple, but it's good that it's simple, Anyone who's been a fan of Spider-Man, who likes Spider-Man or whatever, can just go in this game and expect what they want. The beat-em-up aspect, which actually feels very similar to the Batman Arkham City, Arkham Asylum. You know, feels very similar to that. So if you like that style of gameplay, you're really going to love this guy. Now this game also, I want to point out, has really, really good replayability. There is, like, in the free roam, which I mentioned was really solid, there's a lot to do. Like, there's a lot of mini missions, like, there's lab missions which allow you to get more abilities. There's missions where you can save, like, random civilians, which they call petty crime, I think. I'm sorry, I really should have done my research. Petty crime or small crime or whatever they call them. They're like little things where there's a mugging in progress. You just have to save them by beating up the criminal. There's really cool photo opportunities because, as you know, Peter Parker is a journalist, and you meet a person who wants you to take pictures for her. And basically, throughout the city, you can do little mini quests. And you step into a zone, and you'll be prompted with a camera. You'll be like, okay, there's things you got to look for and take pictures of, and you got to kind of locate them in that area. Take a picture of them, and it'll make a story for this reporter who gives you this camera to do these side missions for. And I really liked that because it gave you an idea what to look for, but it didn't right up tell you, go turn 2 meters to the left, it's right there, go take a picture of it. No, you kind of had to look and use a bit of you had to kind of think a little bit and, kind of use your wisdom or whatever to find find what you were looking for there. And not only that, but there's tons of things where you have to bring civilians back to the loony bin. I'm not even kidding you. There's guys who escaped from the insane asylum. You got to bring them back. There's infected people with this virus. I'm not going to spoil too much. It's part of the main game. You got to bring them to a quarantine zone. Things like that. And I know the game has a lot of replayability, which is always a good thing in my mind. This game really captures it a lot. Now, I'm sure most people know that movie tie-in games suck. And that's like a given. Like, most movie tie-in games are given 4s and 5s at best, because they are really just trash just to come out with the movie, so that when you play the movie, when you go see the movie, you're hyped up. You play the game too with it. That's the whole point of movie tie-ins, right? But Spider-Man, I've always heard, has always been a good movie tie-in series, so that's why I did do it. And I am happy to say that I am happy to have played this game. It was a lot of fun. I didn't do too much on the free roam, but I want to put this out there because July is so slow. I'm thinking about actually doing a free roam portion, like a whole episodic series where I do a bunch of side missions for this and maybe collect some costumes and things like that. It's an option, and I figured that'd be get more time because people love the Spider-Man. People love watching me play the Spider-Man game. They really enjoy this game and my commentary with it. So that might be an idea I'm going to do there. But in terms of that, I really enjoyed it. It's very cliche Spider-Man, but you gotta love it. Like the lame jokes that Peter Parker makes, like, although they make you really just facepalm, they are really like traditional Peter Parker Spider-Man style, So you gotta love that. You gotta love the respect it has, this game, to the original Spider-Man. As different as it may be now, I could appreciate what they've done with it, and they did take it in a good direction. So in terms of negatives, besides the fact that they spoiled their own game, and sometimes the voice acting is a little cheesy, to say the least, but that's how it is, right? That's how Spider-Man is. So I'm going to rate this game. That's really all I have to say about it. Pretty simplistic. It's a movie tie-in game. There's not a whole lot you can really say to it. But I'm going to give The Amazing Spider-Man, a 7.5 out of 10. I think it was a really solid game. Not something you're really gonna go crazy over. Yeah, I know I didn't really release too many downsides. I know a lot of people misconstrued that just because I don't really mention many negatives. They think that gives it grounds for a perfect game. A lot of it depends on enjoyability too, guys. You gotta understand that. If I really enjoy a game, it's gonna get a higher mark too. But I'm not gonna mention, I really enjoyed it. That's a good thing. I really didn't enjoy it that much. It's not something you put down as a point. I did enjoy it, but it's not something I'm really going to go back to, you know what I mean? There's those collectibles that I can get, but they are all kind of similar. Like I said, with the quarantine, you have to pick up a person, bring him here. There's an insane asylum guy, pick a person, bring it here. It's similar, you know what I mean? So while there's a lot to do, it does get stale after a while. So that is why this game is 7.5. I do recommend you take a look into this game. It isn't entertaining. There's no multiplayer, but I like games that don't have multiplayer because then I know it sounds weird, but they focus on the single-player gameplay. And myself being a single-player person, I think that's the best way to go. So that's The Amazing Spider-Man, a 7.5, not a bad review. not a bad score for this game, especially it being a movie tie-in. You got to give it that credit. So, let's move on to the second game we have covered. Spec Ops: The Line. A very highly anticipated game. When I tried the demo, I was itching to play the full version because I really loved how the game felt. So, but before we get into this guy, we will read off my summary for you guys. Okay? Spec Ops: The Line is available on PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. It is a third-person shooter and actually a tactical shooter. It is developed. Okay, it was developed by two different parties. One for the single player, one for the multiplayer. The single player was developed by Jaeger Development, and the multiplayer was developed by Dark Side Games Studios. Yeah, sorry, Dark Side Games Studios, and it was published by 2K Games. Okay. Alrighty, so what can we say about Spec Ops: The Line? Upon first playing this game, I immediately remembered why I liked the demo. The gameplay is as simple as it is. It's a lot of fun. It just the whole controls. This is one of my favorite parts, the controls. They were they felt good. I know I normally say that to generalize a control scheme, but honestly, the controls in this game felt really good to me. I felt comfortable. I felt like I could pick up on this game a lot quicker than other games, and that was the case. So the fact that this game allowed you to jump in and just kind of, really feel like it was a simplistic controls. You figure it out, you're good to go. Especially with the aiming and the shooting, I really like that. So the controls are simplistic. They're easy to get into. I really enjoyed the feel of the controls. One thing I gotta say, people will tell you this will be, it's a third-person shooter. Most people don't think third-person shooters or shooters in general to really have a very gripping storyline. This one did. Honestly, it was very unique. I was actually confused a lot of the times as to how crazy this game was, or the storyline of this game was, what was happening to your main character, what was going on in his head, what was going on with your teammates, etc., etc. It was actually pretty nuts when you think about it. And this game actually did keep me really entertained, and I'm like, wow, it really made you feel. There was a few scenes in this game that actually made you really go like, I was literally like, oh my god, that just happened. And if you watch my my run through of it, or if you played it yourself, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There were a lot of situations that made you go, wow, damn, that just happened. And so it has a really gripping storyline, something I'm really actually excited to see. And it was really entertaining. I enjoyed the storyline. And I'm happy to say I did play this game as well. It was really good, a great storyline. However, there are some negatives, obviously, to this type of game. While it has a really comfortable control, I really enjoyed I really enjoyed the story mode. Also, okay, before I go into those negatives, I want to say one last thing. This game has a really cool tactical atmosphere. Like I said, it was a tactical shooter. You have the ability to control your teammates, and tell them what to do. And the thing is, their emotions intertwine with the situation. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but at the beginning of the game, certain things happen. Your team, your group together, things start happening, things change, and then their attitudes towards you change too, depending on what happens, right? So there's many different ways that this game can really partake. So the fact that the tactical shooter and the relationships you develop with them is so realistic, and it's really interesting. So I wanted to throw that in there. The tacticalness of it, the whole commanding your squad, and how your squad actually talks with you, and you develop a relationship with them, and it's affected in the game depending on what point in time in the game you are. I think that was really cool, and I think that was a really great addition to this guy. But anyways, let's move on to my negatives that I was going to tell you. As fun as this game is, as nice as the storyline is, good God, is it repetitive. Yeah, you're having fun at first, but then after a while you're getting thrown the same enemies, the same type of environments. It's all very vanilla. I've been throwing that term around a lot lately, but it's been one. It really makes sense. It's very vanilla. I mean, oh God, like you're in Dubai, right? So there's a lot of sand, and there's a lot of just generic stuff going on. It's all the same scenarios. It does get repetitive. Like I said, especially with the enemies, it's very repetitive. And you do get kind of bored of it easy, but that's one of the things that I really didn't like about it, just how boring it does get eventually, if you're not, I don't know, even if you played in stages like I did, it was getting kind of boring. So that was one thing that I really disliked about it. It got repetitive. However, I did want to add something to the list of positives. The fact that they were interactive cover, interactive, constantly interactive. This is intertwined with multiplayer as well. There's constant real-time actions that affect the gameplay, and it's completely optional if you choose to do it or not. And what I'm referring to is, for example, say you see a giant piece of glass, like a giant window, and there's enemies right in front of it. You could shoot out that glass and have a giant mound of sand crush all these people, but you don't have to. You can just shoot them out regularly if you want, or you can shoot something down from the rafters to land on them. It's really, really cool how it interacts with that. It's completely optional. And multiplayer is in that too. It's real time, so I want to throw that in as well. All right, let's move on. I did want to mention as well. I always have beef with this, but it is a short game. I finished it in about 5 hours. Not very long at all. An average game to me is 8 hours long. If you have an 8-hour long game for single player, usually that's what I expect. But with a third-person shooter with a multiplayer segment, it's to be expected that they do have a shorter single-player campaign. But I'm just a little tired of it, considering how much time they put into these games, and they focus more on the multiplayer. But this time, when they have two different developers on the single-player and the multiplayer, who are not really, doing that well with it, it does get kind of irritating. You know what I mean? You're just like, come on, you can't put one guy can't work that much harder on the single player to get a good campaign. Whatever, right? So that's the thing. It's a little short, and that was the problem for me. It was pretty short, but at the same time, since it's repetitive, it is kind of a blessing, right? But you do want to get what you pay for. But that's just how things go with these games. But anyway, I want to move on to multiplayer. I only played an hour's worth of multiplayer before I was too bored of it. I'm not even kidding you. I don't know what the team did, but honestly, it was so basic shooter in the multiplayer. I was like, at first, I was like, this isn't bad. It's pretty good. But as I played, I'm just like, oh my god, I want to go to sleep now, or I want to turn this off, or I want to do something else. Because it was really boring me. Like, the multiplayer really needs improvement. Really simplistic. Sorry, not simplistic. I don't want to use that. I usually use that as a positive. Really basic shooter, generic. Whenever I say generic, it's never a good thing. Especially with these shooters, I want something new. And when I get a gripping storyline, you can't have a decent multiplayer. It's got to be good, generic, like these other generic FPSs, third-person shooters that we get. That's the problem with it. I'm sorry, but that was the main thing. The biggest bad things about this game are the boring, like how it gets repetitive and therefore gets boring with the multiplayer, and it's not a very long campaign. But at the same time, the campaign story is really gripping and exciting. So that's one of the main things I have to contrast it with. So I'm going to rate this game what I really feel it deserves, and if you guys really should purchase it or not, I really think this game is worth a 7 out of 10. A very good score, although honestly, these games are getting kind of generic now, especially with the multiplayer, because the single player was so engrossing and really unique. That's why I gave it a 7. If it was just a basic, generic third-person shooter where the control scheme I didn't really like, and it wasn't as it was still as repetitive, blah blah blah, I'd probably give it more like a 6.5 or something like that. Because, to be honest with you, this game probably is best to rent, enjoy the campaign, then be done with it. But the problem is, how are you going to rent games anymore? Everything's closed. Blockbuster, all your, Rogers Video, that's Canadian, sorry. But any movie rental or game rental place is out of business. It's all Netflix and GameFly. So if you're going to GameFly it, I would GameFly this. But I wouldn't necessarily buy it. But if you're into generic FPS or third-person shooters, which some people really like, and they like that type of multiplayer, you're probably going to like this multiplayer. But coming from me, a person who's more a single player, and you really have to have a solid multiplayer side of things to really engross me, I wasn't too impressed, so I got a little bored. But that's how it is. So that's it for this week's DanQ Super Show, or this episode of DanQ Review Super Show. See, I can't even talk. I'm seriously that flustered. It's so freaking hot, Oh god, and a Canadian and heat doesn't really work so well. So, anyways, guys, thanks again for watching this. Hope it helped you make a decision on these games. I hope you enjoyed this review. Stay tuned for plenty of games to come out. I have some things up my sleeve, which you guys will be seeing very shortly. So thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed again. Take it easy, and I'll see you guys soon for more gameplay.